As we look into the history of our immune system and we see what defends us, the white blood cells in the body, and then also what attacks us, all the different intruders of infection, we want to look historically at this data. How did all this science come to us? Well, literally thousands and thousands of years in China and in India, they had vaccinations. They took scabs and they used these things to develop things that would build immunity. Leeuwenhoek has the microscope in the early 1600s, and they actually then knew that there were microorganisms. They didn't quite understand a lot of it, but they knew they were there. It wasn't until 1846 that Semmilvise and here at the Semmilvise Institute in Budapest, but Semmilvise actually found out that you should wash your hands. Here's a picture of me in my class in 1996 when I helped homeopathy be founded in this country, because it needed somebody to do lectures. Now, as we go into our study of this immunity, we want to understand that homeopathy is a big part of this. You see, because Jenner was actually a homeopath trying to find like treating like, and the cowpox was like the smallpox. Hahnemann developed a lot of these ideas and came up with the basic idea of homeopathy. Herring was actually using variolinum, which is a type of scab thing, to produce cures, and he was doing it in 1828. Semmilvise learned that we needed to wash our hands, and that was in 1846. Semmilvise, working in Vienna, found out about these things and how that there was a difference between medical doctors and midwives in the amount of birth deaths. Now, to put this in perspective, we look at the War of 1812, one of the crucial wars in America, England, and the Battle of New Orleans was actually fought a couple of months after the war had ended. But you see, the boats were so slow that they couldn't even get word to anybody. So nobody even knew that the war ended. There was a dramatic lack of communication back then. People didn't really understand things. And vaccination and all this development really was happening at an archaic time. I worked at Semmilvise, and now let's look at a little bit more about that. Let's look at germ theory, but let's recognize that we have to relook at it by the end of this presentation.
Some discoveries, like X-rays, seem to come out of the blue, while others, like our next great discovery, develop over time, with one scientist contributing to the work of another. Vienna, 1846. A city of beauty and culture. But at Vienna General Hospital, there was the specter of death. Many of the women who came here to give birth were dying. The cause? Childbed fever, an infection of the uterus. When Dr. Ignaz Semmilvise came to work at the hospital, he was alarmed at the scope of the problem and intrigued by a curious discrepancy.
They had two wards. In one, the mothers were delivered by physicians, and in the other, the mothers had their babies delivered by midwives. Semmilvise noted that in the ward where the physicians delivered babies, 7% of the mothers died from what was called childbed fever. In the ward where the midwives delivered, only 2% of the mothers died from childbed fever. And this bothered him because physicians have more training. They're supposed to do better by their patients.
Semmilvise was determined to find out what was going on.
He noted that one of the main things that physicians did that midwives did not do was to conduct autopsies on these mothers after they died. Then they would go back and deliver babies or examine mothers without washing their hands, just like an auto mechanic who would finish up on one car and then move to the next car without washing his hands to get the grease off. He didn't see any reason to have to do this.
Semmilvise wondered if the doctors were carrying some invisible matter on their hands, which they passed on to their maternity patients, causing them to die. To find out, he conducted a test.
He decided that he would have the student physicians under his control wash their hands in a chlorine solution. And suddenly, the percentage of maternal deaths dropped to 1%. That's lower than the midwives.
With this demonstration, Semmilvise realized that infectious disease, in this case childbed fever, has a single cause. If you eliminate the source of the infection, the disease does not occur. But in 1846, no one had made the connection between bacteria and infections. As a result, Semmelweis's idea was ignored. It would take 10 more years before another scientist would turn his attention to germs. His name? Louis Pasteur. Pasteur had lost 3 of his 5 children to typhoid fever, which perhaps explains why he was determined to find the cause of infectious diseases. It was Pasteur's work on behalf of the beer and wine industry that put him on the right track. Pasteur was trying to find out what was spoiling so much of the country's wine production. He discovered that the spoiled wine was contaminated by microorganisms, germs, and the germs were causing the wine to sour. But with a simple heat treatment, he showed that the germs could be killed off and the wine saved. The pasteurization process was born. So when it came to finding the cause of infections and contagious disease, Pasteur knew where to look. Germs, he said, cause specific diseases, and he proved it through a series of experiments and demonstrations that led to his great discovery, germ theory.
The germ theory literally marks the beginning of modern medicine. The germ theory has one central idea, that one microorganism causes one disease in everybody. Now today this seems so obvious, but this is one of the most revolutionary concepts in medicine.
Louis Pasteur, a famous microbiologist, not a doctor, develops germ theory and many vaccinations and many other things. Now we're going to take a look at the movie made about his life. Made back in 1936. Oh my God. And we're going to see Paul Mooney, he actually wins the Academy Award for Best Actor. This movie was nominated for Best Film. It won several other Oscars. So it gives you an idea not only of the history of immunology, but this movie should also give you a little bit of the idea of the history of film, etc. As we take a look at the development of Louis Pasteur, and we see how he developed the ideas of the germ theory against tremendous resistance. There was incredible resistance. At the time, you see, the surgeons would wash their hands during surgery, but at the end of surgery, before they went home, they would wash their hands before they went home so they could get the blood off. They never ever washed their hands before they started surgery. They didn't really appreciate any of this, and it was Louis Pasteur who changed this. And there was a time they actually made washing the hands illegal as a reaction against Louis Pasteur. But let's look deeper into the movie and learn more about the life of Louis Pasteur.
Doctor, your carriage is waiting.
All right, one moment. Dr. Francois. Yeah? Murder! No! Justice! In what way did he wrong you? He killed my wife! With his dirty hands, he gave her fever. Childbed fever. But you can't blame a doctor for that. Here, read this.
Louis Pasteur. Now, who is he?
He is a menace to science. The shooting of Dr. Francois proves it. Now, monsieur, if Pasteur is allowed to continue, he will make the practice of medicine unsafe for us physicians and surgeons of France. You have all read the pamphlet.
Louis Pasteur?
He isn't even a doctor, sire. He's a mere chemist.
A chemist? You don't say.
You remember a few years ago he was the cause of a slight controversy on the subject of sour wine?
Oh, yes, I recall.
He claimed to have found little animals in it, infinitesimal beasts.
But are there such creatures? Do they really exist?
Your Majesty, microscopic organisms have long been observed. They spring into being of their own accord wherever there's putrid matter or fermentation. They're the result rather than the cause of disease. By heating wine to a certain temperature, Monsieur Pasteur was able to destroy them. I presume he plans to cure blood poisoning in the same manner, namely by boiling our blood.
Heaven forbid.
It's not unlikely, I assure you.
But I won't have it, Charbonnet. I won't tolerate such practices. We're not living in the Middle Ages. This is France, Paris, the 19th century.
I think Monsieur Pasteur should be allowed to defend himself.
But, Your Majesty,
I, too, have read the pamphlet, Dr. Chabonnet. It said nothing about boiling blood. Merely to boil the instruments that you surgeons use.
Your Majesty, if I did anything so absurd as to boil my instruments or scrub my hands, they'd think I was a witch doctor resorting to charms and laugh me out of the hospital.
That would be a novelty, monsieur. Most people who go to hospitals are carried out, dead.
Yes, Charbonnet. Why? Because our criminal disregard of germs and their power to invade the bloodstream is causing a death rate in childbirth alone of 3 out of every 10 mothers. Or in the city of Paris, over 20,000 innocent and helpless women annually. This being the case, gentlemen, I leave it to you to decide which of us should be called murderer. I know what they'll say to that. Give us proof. Proof. As if the dead and dying weren't proof enough of their stupidity.
But, Louis, you can't be sure. You haven't found the germ.
Oh! Yes? How about those slides? Do they show anything?
58th test, all negative.
And yours?
Here is one with a few short chains.
Ah, let me see it. Mm-hmm. According to Semmilvise, there has never been a case of childbed fever unless the doctor or midwife had been in recent contact with another victim of the disease. What luck? Nothing definite. Try again.
Again?
Yes, again, again, and again. Remember our aim. Find the microbe, kill the microbe.
Mother,
Yes, Annette?
there's someone at the door.
Who is it?
I don't know, I didn't look.
Service of His Majesty, the Emperor of France. A letter for Monsieur Pasteur.
He isn't here, monsieur.
No? Then who is that? Monsieur Pasteur.
The Emperor. If I could only convince him. No, thank you.
Now, Annette, we must hurry and get the surprise ready.
Can I help? We'll all help, darling.
This isn't the palace.
Excuse me stopping, monsieur. One moment. My wife is very sick. The doctor warned me. Louise!
You could have done nothing, Doctor. She's been in a coma for 2 days.
Childbed fever?
No doubt.
Ah, a pity.
It was an act of providence.
Providence? No, ignorance. You are going to another confinement?
Yes, monsieur. The young Countess de Villefort for Dr. Charbonnet.
Please use a clean one. Charbonnet.
Charbonnet.
Your Majesty.
I have a surprise for you. Who do you think is here?
I am most curious, Your Majesty.
Who? Pasteur.
Pasteur? Here at the palace?
Yes. I sent for him.
The Emperor has never seen a germ. He's very skeptical.
If he will honor me by looking at these slides...
Monsieur Pasteur, you are wanted.
I wonder how you handle this apparatus.
The Empress.
Let me see. Let me see. Oh, that. Here.
Come, Pasteur. Tell us precisely what you mean.
Sire, the hospitals of Paris are pest houses. There's scarcely a doctor in the city who's not carrying death on his hands and instruments.
Because of microbes, monsieur? Your private menagerie of invisible beasts?
Exactly. Dr. Charbonnet could see them for himself. If he took the trouble to use his microscope, he could watch them multiply into murderous millions. They breed in filth. They may start from the gutters of Paris tonight and by tomorrow claim some mother from this very court.
Preposterous. To think that a human being could be destroyed by an animal 10,000 times smaller than a flea. It's as though an army of ants were to overthrow your Majesty's empire.
Monsieur, a young woman, the wife of one of the court servants, died here this evening. A victim of your bigotry.
You dare accuse me of murder?
But that isn't the end. The midwife who attended her will carry the infection to your next and more illustrious patient, Comtesse Gabrielle de Villefort.
Stop. You should know better, monsieur. The Comtesse Gabrielle is Her Majesty's sister. I forbid any more.
Oh, Monsieur Pasteur, it's the most fascinating
If you
thing.
please, my dear.
Your Majesty, Is it not true that you are the author of a pamphlet which caused the death of a noted physician, and also that you practice medicine of a kind?
I don't practice medicine. I'm trying to put a stop to the negligence of those who do.
Pasteur, in the preservation of wine and beer, you have been of service to France. We appreciate it. In future, you will confine your work to that field. It is my wish, nay, my command, that if you have any more theories to offer, you will first present them in writing to the Academy of Medicine, which is the proper guardian of our national health.
Sire, what about the pamphlet he's already written?
As for that pamphlet, monsieur, you will publish immediate retraction or suffer my displeasure.
Permit me, monsieur. I am Jean Martel, physician and surgeon. Graduate of the École Normale, the Institut Français, Doctor of Medicine from the Sorbonne, Secretary of Hygiene, member of the International Association of Doctors at Edinburgh. Personally, I'm convinced there is some truth in what you say.
You honor me.
Charbonnet is a fool when it comes to anything new or the least bit...
Beg your pardon. Aren't you Dr. Charbonnet's assistant?
Well, yes, I suppose I am.
It's your duty to respect him, then. Not to ridicule him.
I, monsieur?
Good night.
He's coming! He's coming! Light the candle. Coming. Light the candle, quickly! Light the candle! Stop that.
Marie, you'll have to pack. We're leaving Paris tomorrow.
You all are aware of the conditions upon which Bismarck has consented to withdraw the German armies from France. In addition to forfeiting Alsace-Lorraine, he must pay an immediate indemnity of 5 billion francs. The question is, how are we to raise such a sum?
Your Excellency, our industries are at a standstill. Farms are being neglected. A devastating plague destroys our cattle at a cost of millions of francs annually. This being the case, my efforts to raise money have failed everywhere, except in one small province, the district of Arbois.
But if Arbois can pay, why not the others?
For some reason, they haven't been affected by the plague.
Is that true, Dr. Radis?
I don't know, Your Excellency.
If there is no disease among the cattle of Arbois, it is our duty to learn why. Perhaps they've found some means of preventing it.
Your Excellency, every farmer has a so-called cure for anthrax. The Academy of Science has listened to thousands.
Then how do you account for this phenomenon?
Sometimes it happens a field will be immune. Arbois, it seems, is particularly fortunate.
That is only guesswork, Dr. Radis. I suggest that you make a thorough investigation immediately. France is in desperate need. Her resources must be tapped to the limit. Every animal that you can save for slaughter will buy back some Frenchman's liberty and self-respect.
Jenner was indeed a homeopath, but he didn't call himself a homeopath. You see, homeopathy didn't really exist. It was known. The news didn't travel very much. So Jenner, who was trying to find out how to deal with smallpox, saw that cowpox was like it. And he knew that there was a concept of like treating like. Now let's learn more about vaccination. Jenner was indeed a homeopath trying to find different ideas of like treating like. That was his life work.
18th century, when smallpox killed an estimated 40 million people around the world. Doctors were unable to find the cause or discover a cure. But in a small English village, talk of how some locals were immune to smallpox got the attention of a country doctor named Edward Jenner.
Yes, Jenner was a homeopath, and he had the idea about variolinum, but he also thought about vaccination, what the cowpox did. Now, you have to realize, why didn't he really talk to Hahnemann? Well, even in a couple years after this, in the War of 1812, there was no real communication. At the Battle of New Orleans in 1812, the war was already over by months. So you see, Hahnemann and Jenner never really could have communicated. And Jenner was a homeopath, and he was trying to find ideas about homeopathy. And he saw that cowpox was like smallpox. So he had the idea of like treating like. Vaccination comes from the word cow.
It was said that villagers who worked in the dairy business were safe from smallpox because they'd already been infected by cowpox, a related but less severe disease that afflicted cattle. Cowpox victims suffered fever and sores on their hands, but little else. Jenner studied the phenomenon and began to wonder if the pus in the cowpox sores was somehow responsible for protecting against smallpox. On May 14, 1796, during an outbreak of smallpox, he decided to test his theory. Jenner withdrew pus from the cowpox sores on the hands of a dairymaid. Then he visited another family in the village. He inoculated a healthy 8-year-old boy with the cowpox virus, confident in the outcome. In the days that followed, the boy developed a slight fever and some cowpox blisters, then recovered. 6 weeks later, Jenner returned. This time, he inoculated the boy with smallpox, then waited. The moment of success or failure was at hand. Within days, Jenner had his answer. The boy was completely healthy, resistant to smallpox.
Vaccination for smallpox was revolutionary because it represented people's attempt to intervene into the disease process, to prevent it up front. This is the first time a man-made product had been used actively to prevent disease before it occurred.
50 years after Jenner's discovery, Louis Pasteur pushed the concept of vaccination even further, developing vaccines against rabies in humans and anthrax in sheep.
Now let's return to our movie, and we'll watch a little bit more about how Louis Pasteur had these ideas, and he put them into action, and he started developing the vaccines for anthrax.
They really don't look sick.
Luck, that's all. Pure luck.
Let's ask that boy a few questions. Come on. Come, please. Hello there, young man.
Well,
Have any of your animals died of anthrax lately?
anthrax? What's that?
You know, the Black Plague.
Oh, Black Plague. They used to, but not anymore.
Just as I thought. These fields have become immune.
But how, Doctor? Why?
My dear friend, that question is beyond the scope of science. When you ask me how or why, I must refer you to the theologian.
When the sheep were sick, did your master do anything to help them?
He couldn't do much for the sick ones, but there's a man did something for the others, and they stay well, like these here.
What man?
See the house over there by the bridge?
Yes?
He lives there.
I beg your pardon. I am Jean Martel. This is Dr. Radis, chairman of the Agricultural Board of the New Republic.
Well,
Oh, visitors.
see here, what is this nonsense?
Monsieur?
What do you think you're doing to those sheep?
Vaccinating them against the anthrax bacillus.
The what?
The microbe, monsieur. The germ that causes anthrax.
Did you hear that, Martel? The germ.
We were sent to Arbois to discover, if possible, why your sheep escaped the plague.
You're quite welcome, monsieur. My name is Annette Pasteur.
You mean...
I'm quite sure Father would be delighted to see you.
Not Louis Pasteur, that chemist.
Father!
Louis, now where are you going? Didn't you promise me to rest?
I'll be right back, dear. I'll be right back.
So, you are now the savior of the sheep, monsieur.
Very interesting.
He's the man who was responsible for the death of Dr. Francois, remember? He was run out of Paris.
Not quite, Doctor.
Don't deny it. You were, and you were warned not to practice. Positively forbidden. A prophet is never without followers, it seems.
But rarely such intelligent ones. These animals know what's good for them.
Perhaps you will tell me what's good for them. I'd like to know, too.
I'm afraid it's hopeless, but I'll try.
Oh!
Yes? Will you try and explain to Dr. Radis what we're doing? He's a member of the Academy of Medicine, so you'll have to use very simple language.
We're convinced, Doctor, after 8 years of experimenting, that this vaccine, when injected into the animal, will set up an immunity.
Ridiculous. It would take 80 years to convince me.
80? Aren't you a little optimistic?
You're wasting your money.
But I don't pay. It's free.
Bah. Come along, Martel. I've heard enough. Are you coming?
No, I'm going to stay.
Drive on.
Still disobeying your superiors, eh?
I didn't think you remembered me, monsieur.
I remember you indeed. The night of the palace, when I told the Emperor Comtesse de Villefort would die.
You were right. She did die. And Charbonnet has never forgiven you.
May I ask why you want to stay?
I'm no longer an idle courtier, monsieur. I work for the government. My job is to help the farmers of France. So if you don't mind...
Annette!
Yes, Father?
Ask your mother if we have room for a guest.
Oh, I'm quite sure we have. I mean, I'll go find out.
So you want to render your country a real service, is that it?
Why, yes, I do.
Good. Come with me. This should be of interest to you. I have here the complete life history of the anthrax bacillus in a form which even the layman can understand. For example, this slide reveals a number of dormant germs, or spores as we call them, which are found in the grass and soil wherever diseased animals have been buried. In this state, the germ hibernates, so to speak, the way a caterpillar does in a cocoon, and may remain inanimate for years. But the moment these germs find themselves in a favorable medium, such as the warm blood of a sheep, they immediately change form and grow into long rods, like this. Amazing. Let us now look at the blood of a healthy animal, before any germs have entered it. Those are living blood cells as we find them in a normal, healthy sheep.
How do the spores get into the bloodstream?
They're swallowed with the grass that the creature eats. But soon we find that the spores have changed into fully developed germs, deadly and prolific. Here we have the blood of a sick animal, this time with the anthrax bacillus present. Note the rods that occur among the cells. Those are the culprits we're fighting. At this stage, the animal is doomed to die. Once it is buried, however, the germs cease to be active and become spores again. As time goes on, they're liberated into the soil to be blown about in the dust and pollute the grass. Hence the continued recurrence of the plague.
And you say these spores are present even here, in the pastures at Arbois?
In every acre of ground that I've tested. The only reason that our cattle stay healthy is because of my vaccine. For an animal that hasn't been vaccinated, Arbois is one of the worst areas in all of France.
Where are they taking these sheep?
I don't know. Beaucourt, find out where they're going.
What's that?
Look, Radis is responsible for this.
Government field. Government field.
Such stupidity is inexcusable. You must stop them. Stop! Stop them! Stop them! Stop! Stop! Stop them! We're not letting the sick ones through, only the healthy ones. They'll die, I tell you. The fields aren't safe. They're reeking with contagion. As a representative of the government, I've inspected these fields, and they're safe. But you're wrong, Radis. It's been proven that they're not. Stop them! Come on, stand back. Isn't there anyone we can appeal to?
I've seen with my own eyes what Pasteur can do, and has done for the sheep and cattle of Arbois. We, on the other hand, members of the Academy of Medicine, have contributed nothing in the fight against anthrax. Then why in heaven's name don't we listen to a man who has?
Pasteur was discovered to be a charlatan 10 years ago when he made ludicrous claims concerning the cause of childbed fever, claims that he was never able to prove. Consequently, I see no reason for humoring him further.
I disagree. If someone has a cure for anthrax, I want to know about it.
So do I.
Will the visitors in the gallery please keep quiet? Dr. Radis.
Thank you. There is just one question I want to raise, and that is this. Whether Dr. Martel's purpose here is to further the cause of science or the cause of love. Personally, I am of the latter opinion. For having met Monsieur Pasteur's amiable daughter, I can hardly blame our young colleague for wishing to become his son-in-law.
I protest, Mr. Chairman. I'm here because I think Pasteur is right. I know he's right.
And he will doubtless reward you for your splendid efforts on his behalf.
Dr. Rosno.
Friends, colleagues, I should like to propose an experiment that will rid us once and for all of this medical mountebank, Louis Pasteur. In my laboratory, I've found that I can produce anthrax in healthy sheep by injecting into them the dark, poisonous blood of an animal already affected with the disease. This treatment invariably results in death. Let us take 15 normal, healthy sheep, 25 of which will be vaccinated by Monsieur Pasteur. The other 25 will remain as they are. I shall then infect all 50 sheep with anthrax by the method I've just explained. And I defy any man or any vaccine to save one of them.
Splendid nonsense. Pasteur would be a fool to try it.
He wouldn't dare.
Dr. Martel. Well, I can't take it upon myself. But if this treatment is all that you say that it is.
Yes, let him prove it. Let him prove it.
I dare him to try it. I accept.
Monsieur Pasteur. Thank you. Dr. Rossignol, one moment, please. Just Dr. Rossignol, please.
This is the last one.
If you wait for me, I'll go home with you.
Don't you have to stay here?
Oh, no. No, that's against the rules of the experiment.
Then Father can go home with us, too?
Yes.
Having treated these 25 animals with your magic vaccine, your contention is that they are now immune?
Correct.
And I am at liberty to inject into them the blood of an animal that has died of anthrax.
If you insist, Doctor. But it's a very clumsy way of introducing the disease. Much simpler if you use the germ instead.
Who said anything about germs?
Well, what do you think causes anthrax?
Anthrax is generated within the body. It does not come from an outside source.
Well, why inject anything? Why not let it generate?
Monsieur, are you going to abide by the rules of this experiment? Or would you rather admit your defeat, here and now?
Proceed, Doctor. By all means, proceed. It merely occurred to me...
Too many things occur to you. That's your trouble.
We're ready, Doctor.
Oh, go ahead.
I say, Monsieur Pasteur, would you care to make a statement to the London Times?
The sheep that have not been treated by me will die of anthrax within 48 hours.
The others won't even be ill, I suppose.
At least let us hope they won't. For the sake of France.
To the end of microbes and their high priest, Louis Pasteur.
Try not to worry, Louis.
I should have stayed. I shouldn't have left them.
Who's there? Besides, Dr. Rossignol said it was against the rules.
Rules? What nonsense.
Louis, do you realize what this means? Tomorrow, if you're successful, every farmer in Europe will want your vaccine. You won't have a moment's peace, day or night.
The benefits of science are not for scientists, Marie. They're for humanity.
Our opponents are on their way.
Well, Rossignol or Pasteur, which is it going to be?
I say Rossignol. He's a member of the Academy.
I say Monsieur Pasteur will win.
Please, one moment.
Well, they're having quite a call.
It's amazing. People have come from all over Europe.
To see the acrobats or the Punch and Judy show?
These rural entertainers are like fleas. The slightest crowd attracts them.
Thank you, monsieur.
Dr. Lister, one moment, please.
List? Well, well. Dr. Lister from England?
The press would appreciate a statement from
Lister,
you.
how extraordinary. What brings you here?
The same reason that brings you, my friends. How do you do? How do you do?
Please.
I'm sorry, after you.
No, after you.
No, after you.
No, after you.
No, after you.
What?
No.
Monsieur. Is it you? Monsieur.
Dead.
Yes, Pasteur was right.
So far. Now let's see the ones he treated.
Well, they won't die, eh?
You couldn't convince me.
They're all alive and healthy, as you predicted. Oh, my faithful friend.
Monsieur Pasteur, Monsieur Pasteur.
Monsieur Pasteur is great.
Monsieur Pasteur.
Good news. Let me shake your hand.
Father, Father, I'm so happy. And I'm so proud, dear.
Annette!
Jean, isn't it wonderful?
At last, monsieur. A triumph.
For you too, my boy. Congratulations.
Father,
Yes.
Jean has something to ask you.
Well, let him ask.
Monsieur Pasteur, what I wanted to say was...
Yes?
Monsieur Pasteur, since my arrival at Arbois, I have come to know you and your family quite well. And, Monsieur Pasteur...
Yes, well.
Well, I feel,
Father, Jean is trying to ask you for my hand.
yes, we want to be married.
Well, I should hope so.
Congratulations.
It doesn't seem possible. How can they be alive?
I can't understand it either.
It's very easy to understand. Pasteur was right, and we were wrong. His vaccine does prevent anthrax.
We have a great man in our midst, a great man.
I quite agree.
I foresee marvelous benefits to the world, especially in the field of surgery.
Why not tell Pasteur yourself, Dr. Lister?
Oh, I'd be delighted to. I want to meet him.
Oh, here he is now. Pardon me.
Excuse me.
Look at those eyes, sparkling with health.
Pasteur, if I've been skeptical, I beg of you to forgive me. It's a miracle. Thank you. Dr. Lister, he wants to meet you. He's traveled all the way from England.
I feel it a great honor to be present.
The honor is mine, Doctor. I'm well acquainted with the work you're doing in antiseptics.
Thanks to you and your brilliant leadership. Such is fate.
blacksmith.
See, this is one. Make 10 of none. Count 2 and 3, the 4 let be. Some 5 and 6, the witch is fierce. Make 7 and 8, this finish straight. And 9 is 1, and 10 is none. And this is the witch's once, once, once.
Not all the doctors in Europe could do more for him. He'll be lucky if he doesn't get rabies even now.
And yet, if we could find the cause of rabies, Doctor, perhaps a cure would follow. There must be a way.
Annette! At this hour?
Why doesn't Jean come home?
He's working with Father.
But he's my husband.
But, dear, he hasn't forgotten that.
Science! Science! Everything's science. I'm going to have a baby. Doesn't he realize that?
When I was your age, I had babies, but I didn't cry about it.
Yes, and how many of them lived?
Annette.
Oh, well, I'm so frightened.
No. No.
I want to see Father. I want to talk to him.
You'll alarm him needlessly. Aren't you ashamed? You know how easily worried he is.
Shh. Where is Monsieur Pasteur?
He can't be disturbed just now. What is it?
It's about the veterinarian.
You wait here. I'll speak to him. Doesn't work. Nothing works.
We've been following the same procedure that we did with anthrax.
Which only shows how little we know about disease. Nature's far too subtle to repeat herself.
I'm sorry, Jean, darling. You're in the middle of an experiment. I didn't mean to disturb you.
It's all right, dear.
You better go back. Father might need you.
No, I'll see you home.
It won't be necessary. I have the coachman with me.
Attention, all of you. So far, we've been unable to find the microbe that causes rabies. Yet, our experiments have shown that it exists. Now, listen carefully. As soon as the veterinarian comes, where's Martel? Just a moment, please. Martel! Martel!
Good night, dear.
Good night.
Good night.
Martel!
Coming.
Where is he? What is he doing?
Annette was here.
Annette? How is she?
She's all right. It's 11 o'clock, Louis. Now, what about your supper?
Oh, a minute, dear. Just a minute.
You said a minute 3 hours ago, and you've eaten nothing.
And we could all do with a little supper, I think.
Well, all right. Tell them to stop. But we're to resume in half an hour.
See you, Papa.
Hello.
Here you are. That's the veterinarian. Open the door.
a letter for you. Came by special post from England.
From Dr. Lister. Let me see it.
Until you've eaten.
Oh, but it's important, Mary.
Very well. I'll read it to you. Dear Sir, my observations lead me to believe you are a scoundrel.
What?
I'm told you are a slave driver to your assistants, that you neglect your wife, abuse your family.
Oh, come, Mary. This is no time to joke.
No, not until you've eaten. I'll tell you what he said.
No.
My dear Pasteur,
That's different.
your recent paper on the known sources of infection is admirable in every detail. Forgive the frankness with which a common love of science inspires me. I embrace you. My fellow workers in Brussels and Prague report that their hospitals are rapidly becoming safe. Mothers can go to them without fear.
That's where Annette should be sent for her confinement. These doctors in Paris.
But that isn't all he says. I do not hesitate to acclaim you the most valuable man yet to enter the field of science.
Nothing, Marie, nothing.
It's a dog. A mad dog.
Open his mouth. I want to get as much of it as I can. Steady now.
Louis, stop! Not hydrophobia.
Marie, I've pledged myself to find a cure. I can't stop now. Not until I've exhausted every effort to rid the world of this deadly disease.
Monsieur Pasteur refuses to attend our meeting, but he continues to impose on the credulity of the people. Too often has he crowded the columns of the papers with his theories.
What about his vaccine for anthrax? That's not a theory. It's a fact. It not only elected him to this academy, but it helped our poor farmers save enough money to pay for the entire Franco-Prussian War.
Where you get your information?
In the name of French science.
Science? You abuse the word. I stand here to defend the honor of French medicine against the tricks of a charlatan.
He's right.
Dr. Zarnov.
I am a Russian. I came here for a definite purpose, commissioned by my government to investigate Pasteur's efforts. His fame has spread to the peasantry of my country, who for centuries have been preyed upon by rabid wolves. I have spent all my life studying rabies, or hydrophobia as we call it, and monsieur, I would worship. I would kneel to any man who could point the way to a cure.
I deny that microbes can be the cause of rabies or any other disease.
Dr. Charbonnet, how do we know that bacteria are not harmful? How do we know they do not do their deadly work that Pasteur claims? If Pasteur is unwilling to come to us, let us go to Pasteur.
To be humiliated further, you, I, the whole academy?
Humility is a virtue, monsieur, not only in those who suffer, but in those who hope to heal.
All right, let us go. Let us see what this great man can teach us. Thank you, madame.
That's a little better.
Fortunately, we found you in, monsieur. It's the wish of some that the Academy of Medicine honor you.
Honor me?
To be brief, Dr. Zarnov here has been reading your recent statements in the journal.
How do you do, Doctor?
Monsieur? Promising a cure for rabies.
press takes liberties, Doctor. As usual, my remarks were grossly exaggerated.
In other words, you have no grounds for making such a prediction?
Grounds?
Proof.
No, not yet.
I didn't think so.
Woo! What an odor. In your last paper of the Academy, monsieur, you stated that you were on the threshold of a vast new world. Might I inquire if you've crossed that threshold?
Science takes a step, then another. Then it stops and reflects before taking a third. A mother takes a nursing child, puts him down, says walk. The child takes the first step, then another. Then it stops unsteadily. Would the mother be right to say to him, you are hesitating? You will never walk? Put out that pipe that stinks to high heaven.
You were saying?
Step by step, I'm reaching the ultimate conclusion that microbes are the cause of all disease. If you men are still skeptical, if microbes are still a myth to you, then listen. One drop of this rabies virus on the slightest scratch will kill a man. And I hold enough in my hand to wipe out a whole city.
Ridiculous. To think that this could kill a man.
Stop it!
All I want now is to have you predict the hour of my death.
It's over a month now, and he's still in perfect health.
Really?
I saw him here yesterday.
You did?
Oh, here he comes now.
Hello, Charbonnet. How are you today?
Splendid. Never felt better.
According to Pasteur, you ought to be in your grave.
The more germs I take, the better I feel.
Cécile, please tell Monsieur that Dr. Rossignol is here.
Yes, madame.
Something ought to be done. I've just come from the boulevard. Charbonnet is making a laughing stock of your husband, parading up and down, showing off, doing everything he can to attract attention to himself, and ridiculing Monsieur Pasteur.
Louis doesn't mind ridicule. If he thinks he's right, that's all that matters.
Monsieur Pasteur, I've come to warn you about Charbonnet. You can't afford to be made ridiculous. The work you're doing is too important.
Important? I wish it were. It isn't. Not yet. My results have all been negative.
You haven't been able to discover the microbe, is that what you mean?
Not a sign.
Well, you seemed so confident the day we were here.
I still am. Every animal that was inoculated with the contents of that test tube died. Charbonnet, for some reason, resisted the disease. Why, I don't know.
Louis, are you sure it was the same tube?
Positive it was the only specimen I had.
May have let it stand too long. You told me once the germs grow weaker, less virulent with age.
Wait. It might be. Oh!
Yeah?
How old was that virus when Charbonnet injected it into his arm?
14 days.
And when was it last used on a rabbit?
Oh, about a week before, I believe.
A week? Are you sure?
Just a moment. Here's the record. 9 days, to be exact.
There's your answer. It must be. It's the only conceivable explanation.
You think by allowing the virus to age, you were able to render it harmless?
Not harmless, but weak. Weak enough for the system to overcome.
Well, even if that's true, it won't help you any. When a man's bitten, he gets the germ full strength, not attenuated.
Precisely. But suppose we started with a 14-day-old virus that's no longer deadly. Suppose we injected it into a healthy animal, and day by day, as nature builds up his resistance, we increase the doses with stronger, fresher virus until the animal is able to withstand the actual disease that we find in the world at large.
Would he not then be immune?
Impossible. It would never work. If the first injection didn't kill him, the second would, or the third.
Oh! Where are those tubes you've been preparing?
Right here. Let me have them. They're all in order. Each one is dated.
Now, here we are. 14 days. Jean?
Yes, monsieur.
Jean, how many dogs have we left?
10.
Are they well? Healthy?
In perfect condition. They've never been exposed.
Give them hydrophobia.
You mean?
Give them hydrophobia.
Open the door.
Come here. There you are. Yeah. There you are. Yeah, no. Everybody will get his share. There we are. Hold on.
If it hadn't been for Charbonnet, we might never have discovered this treatment.
Poor Charbonnet. Little does he know that he's been our favorite guinea pig.
Louis,
Yes, dear.
will you come, please? There's a doctor to see you.
A doctor? Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Monsieur Pasteur, I am Dr. Pfeiffer. I apologize for not giving you notice, but we came all the way from Alsace.
We?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Here they are. Please. Madame Meister, monsieur. Her child is a patient of mine. The boy has been bitten by a dog. I have done everything I could, but that is very little. Should he develop hydrophobia...
You can help him. They told us you could.
Give me a hand, little fellow. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you.
My little boy. My little Joseph.
How long has it been?
5 days.
Have you cauterized the wound?
Not right away. It must have been, 24 hours.
Does that mean I'm going to die?
Of course not. Little boys don't die. They have too much to live for.
Oh, he won't live. He won't. I know he won't. Last year it was a neighbor's child of ours, and now it's going to...
Keep quiet. What has that to do with you?
Oh, save him. Save him. Save him.
Marie!
Save him.
Put him to bed and see that he's kept warm.
There now. Mustn't be frightened. We'll go upstairs, shall we? Must be tired after all that long journey.
Mother, I'm coming, darling. I'm coming.
Come.
Are you quite sure the dog was rabid?
Beyond a doubt. I made the test myself. Is there anything you can do?
I don't know. I'm just experimenting. I have hopes, but I... Oh! Find Dr. Rossignol for me at once.
What I mean is this, Dr. Rossignol. I'm sorry. Since death is the only alternative for the boy, I would be willing to try anything. Wouldn't you, Dr. Rossignol?
I'm sorry. I can't agree. Much as I admire Pasteur's accomplishments, nevertheless, where human life is at stake, I'd hesitate a long while before going contrary to the best medical knowledge.
Which in this case means to let the boy die.
We do what we can, administer drugs, sedatives.
Is there a single cure of hydrophobia on record?
I'm not arguing for it. I'm merely pointing out what the accepted treatment happens to be. To embark upon a new course is always dangerous from a professional point of view, and would be doubly so for Monsieur Pasteur, who is a chemist, not a doctor, and could expect no support from the medical profession. For his sake, therefore, I strongly advise that nothing irregular be attempted. Good evening, monsieur.
You're not going to listen to him, are you?
Don't misunderstand me. My treatment has saved dogs. 10 of them. But I haven't the faintest notion what effect it would have upon a human being. If I failed, It would mean prison. Perhaps the guillotine. If you should change your mind, I beg of you, let me know. Good night.
Louis. You didn't. They'll put you in prison. They'll put you in prison. He's asleep.
Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, madame.
Any news of Annette? Seems to me her time's drawing near.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. The doctor I've been counting on is ill.
Leclerc?
Yes.
Well, I'm sure Louis will find someone to take his place.
Yes, but when it comes to the use of antiseptics, it's very difficult to find anyone you can trust.
Martel?
Yes, monsieur. How is the boy?
He has a fever. The third injection made him ill.
Is Roux with him? What are you going to do now?
Do? Give him a fourth, a fifth, a sixth. If he lives. Is that test finished?
No, not quite.
Why not? What's wrong?
One of the vials was accidentally broken.
Idiots! Clumsy fools. I must have it, do you hear? Do it yourself.
Very well.
Don't let another soul touch it.
Louis, you haven't closed your eyes in 48 hours.
There'll be time enough later.
But there won't. That's just the trouble. You'll go on and on.
Marie. I've been lucky all my life. Luckier than I deserve. But if I fail now...
You won't fail. The boy'll recover. And when he does, we'll go away. We'll take a long vacation.
Martel, Roux, all of them. They need it more than we do. How fine they've been. How patient. They'll never know how grateful I am.
Why don't you tell them?
I will. I will. And you, Marie. You, most of all. What have I done to warrant such devotion?
Do you remember what you said when you asked me to marry you? You said, there's nothing about me to attract a young girl's fancy. But those who've known me very well have come to like me.
Did I say that? Was I really that vain?
You knew better, too. You were looking in a mirror when you said it.
This way, please.
1,000 pardons for intruding. I just came from the Russian embassy. Look out the window. Look. They are peasants, victims of rabid wolves. My government have sent them to you.
So soon?
Madame, your husband's cure is the talk of the continent.
But it hasn't been proven yet.
That's why they are here. To offer themselves for the test. Pasteur, it's a marvelous opportunity.
Yes, a marvelous opportunity to kill. To murder.
Stay away, Louis. Don't let them see you.
Pasteur.
I'm a scientist, Zaranov, not a magician. My treatment was intended for dogs.
But these are men. Pasteur, think of it. Surely you won't refuse.
Take him to the hospital. Isolate them. I want a full report on every case.
Thank you, monsieur. Thank you. What a triumph. What a triumph. Good day, madame. 1,000 pardons.
Good day, doctor.
Madame.
Yes, I see you.
How's the boy?
The same. He's had the injection. That makes 4.
Who? Yes? Tell the men they're not to leave the laboratory under any circumstances. Is that clear?
Yes.
I may need them at a moment's notice.
Very well.
Now, madame, what shall I tell the coachman?
Is he still here?
He's waiting in the kitchen.
Just a moment. Louis, it's Annette, and Dr. Leclerc is ill.
Leclerc ill?
I think I'd better call Jean.
Not a word to Jean. Jean stays here.
Louis, he's her husband.
The work he's doing must be finished.
But what are we going to do?
Don't worry. I'll see she gets the proper care. Is the doctor in?
Dr. Girard is out on a case. He won't be home until midnight.
Midnight. Is Dr. Domiere in?
I'm very sorry, monsieur. The doctor's gone to the Riviera for a month's vacation.
Riviera? That's fine.
Is there any message?
No, thank you, thank you, thank you. Charbonnet! Hold on! I want to speak to you. I need help. My daughter's having a child.
Splendid, but why come to me?
Lady Saint-Pierre. Is she all right?
Yes.
This is my wife, Dr. Charbonnet. She will help you. You can depend upon her.
Madame, I'm deeply honored.
Cecile, boil some water.
I'll go back to Annette.
A large kettleful. You're not going to use those instruments without boiling them.
Certainly.
I won't permit it.
My dear Pasteur, I'm doing this as a professional courtesy.
Do it my way. Please.
All right, I'll do it your way. But I'll make a bargain with you.
Bargain?
I, Louis Pasteur, hereby acknowledge if I live another month without contracting hydrophobia, I shall be privileged to publish this in the leading scientific journals of Europe.
Keep them boiling.
Where's the patient?
Wait. Wash your hands first. No. Take your coat off. Now roll up your sleeves and wash them to the elbows.
What's that?
Don't be afraid. It's only a little bichloride. Now use the brush. The brush. Yes, in a moment.
There, does that suit you?
Yes, that's better. Now, there's a clean towel over there. Cecile, hurry. You may go in now. My daughter's ready. Don't touch it.
What?
Your hands. You've spoiled it now. You'll have to wash them again.
See here, I brought hundreds of babies into the world.
Remember our bargain. Do as I say.
Such foolishness.
Now, hold him up high.
What next?
Touch nothing but the patient.
What about my instruments?
They'll be brought to you.
Louis, we have a grandson. Louis. Dr. Charbonnet, come quickly. My husband's ill. Louis.
He's had a stroke.
left side is paralyzed.
Only slightly. It's nothing serious.
When did it happen?
A few days ago.
A few days.
You were more tired than anything else.
Feeling better?
The Meister boy.
He's doing splendidly.
Thank God. And the Russians? Have you been able to help them?
The hospital refused to allow our treatment without permission from the Academy. The permission was granted this morning, but it's too late. 3 of them died yesterday. Horribly.
Let me up.
Please, Louis.
I must go. How many are left?
19. But it's no use. It's hopeless.
If our efforts can save one, it will be well worth it. Let me up, someone. Get me dressed.
What's going on, Doctor?
Pasteur himself is going to treat the Russians, but I'm afraid it's too late.
Dr. Charbonnet, why don't you come in?
I don't want to disturb you.
Patient number 1. 3 cc's. Jean. Patient number 2. Dr. Charbonnet, I didn't thank you for delivering my grandchild.
You've been ill, monsieur. I'm sorry. Perhaps this note will help to speed your recovery.
A bargain's a bargain.
I want a Pasteur treatment for hydrophobia.
How are they today? Much better. That's good.
9th day, patient number 1.
Any change?
Not this morning.
Continued treatment.
8-day-old virus?
Yes.
Patient number 5.
How are the Russian patients today?
Doing very well. Pasteur makes his final visit tomorrow.
Господин доктор, премного вас благодарим.
Спасибо,
что вы нас
батюшка.
вылечили от
Спасибо,
такой
вы
болезни.
вылечили нас.
Благодарим.
Благодарим вас и будем помнить вас.
Благодарю вас.
Хороший батюшка, не
Господин
забудем
доктор,
вас.
благодарим. Подайте ваши руки, пожалуйста. Благодарим вас. Благодарим.
Ну как, отец?
Чувствуем, хвала Богу. Будем молиться. Завсегда.
Спасибо, доктор, батюшка.
Век тебя не забудем.
Приедем.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Madam.
Morning, Cecilia.
How is my little Joseph this morning?
Oh, he's fine and such an appetite. Go right in.
He's gone. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone. Joseph! Joseph! Oh, there
You're
he
that
is.
little rascal, you now. You'll get dressed.
But how can we ever get Monsieur there?
I'll take care of that part of it.
He won't consent to go if he suspects.
He won't suspect. You leave that to me.
Mary?
Joseph, are you ready? Now, you wait a moment. I've a little surprise for you to take home.
Monsieur Pasteur, Madame Master wants to thank you once more before leaving.
Monsieur, I think you are a man who will always be remembered.
No.
Oh, goodbye.
Goodbye, monsieur.
Goodbye.
Joseph.
Can you write?
Yes?
Would you like to write to me?
Yes, very much.
Then let me hear from you every month. Won't you?
Yes, I will.
Don't forget. I'll be looking for your letters.
Joseph.
Yes? Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. By the way, Louis, Roux's just told me that a foreign scientist is to lecture at the Academy tonight. He claims to have disproven your entire germ theory.
Who is he? What's his name?
I don't know.
Order me a carriage. I've got to be there.
You're just in time.
Courage, dear. I'll be listening from the balcony.
Whom are they applauding?
The speaker, Dr. Lister from England.
Lister? Lister to speak against me?
Ladies and gentlemen, the tribute that we render Pasteur on this occasion is small indeed compared to the countless millions who will honor his memory in generations to come. The vaccines for anthrax and hydrophobia are great accomplishments. But even greater still, I believe, is the fact that thousands of people will be saved from unnecessary death from infection. And mothers need no longer fear surgery or childbirth.
In the name of France, I greet you.
Monsieur Pasteur, I greet you in the name of humanity.
Lister. Great Lister.
From His Imperial Majesty, the Tsar of all Russia, with profoundest gratitude.
I have no words to express. young men, doctors and scientists of the future, do not let yourselves be tainted by a barren skepticism, nor discouraged by the sadness of certain hours that creep over nations. Do not become angry at your opponents, for no scientific theory has ever been accepted without opposition. Live in the serene peace of libraries and laboratories. Say to yourselves first, what have I done for my instruction? And as you gradually advance, what am I accomplishing? Until the time comes when you may have the immense happiness of thinking that you have contributed in some way to the welfare and progress of mankind.
Louis Pasteur, on his deathbed, said the microbe is nothing, the train is everything. He recognized that it's the flora, not just the fauna. And he started to recognize a different idea of germ theory. But it was his tenacity that made him great. But then he recognized that there really is a coupled system that working together, and that flies do not cause the garbage. You see, one fly and his offspring will carry away 100 pounds of dead meat in 48 hours, a job that you don't want to do. We have to recognize that oftentimes the infection is there to detox, and that Pasteur developed a deep respect for nature and for God, as he started to understand that this harmony of detoxification and that the infection might be your friend helping you to detox. And sometimes that friend can get out of control. I did a presentation about the ideas of reductionism and some of these other things, and I did it in Singapore, back with the Nobel Prize winner, Montiega. And I hope that you understand a little bit more. And here's a copy from the movie Water, Wine, Homeopathy.
And one day the teacher was teaching his students, and he was teaching about the heavenly bodies, and he pointed at the moon. Some of his students looked up and saw the moon, and some of his students looked up and only saw the finger. This is what's happened in science, is that for many, many years we've had reductionism in science, where we've taken the idea of many complex forces and tried to reduce them. In order to build this building, they take the forces of the weight and calculate how much that beam needs to hold. So reductionism as a form of science was valuable in building buildings and building bridges and building cars. Now we know that reductionism fails in complex situations. When I worked on the Apollo project, we put a man into orbit. And this was a two-body problem. The two bodies where we had the Earth as one and the projectile as number two. So this two-body problem was easy to solve with mathematics. When we had three bodies, we had the astronaut leave the spacecraft, all of a sudden the mathematics became very, very complex. The three-body problem was difficult to solve. In the body, in the human body, we have more than just 2 or 3 variables. We have thousands, millions, zillions of different variables in our body. Lots of different forces that we have to calculate. It's very, very complex. The drug companies have tried to take this and tried to bring it down to the two-body problem, so that when they analyze something, such as blood pressure, they make a pre-blood pressure measurement, give an intervention, then make a post. So they have two things they're analyzing. They're analyzing the drug and the blood pressure. But the human body is so much more complex than this. This type of reductionism does not work in fractal, complex systems. Science now knows this. Science knows that we need to have fractal chaos theory and nonlinear mathematics to solve these issues. Every place in science has reached this conclusion. Any man of learning today knows that fractal mathematics must be used. Nonlinear systems must be used. The one place that has not yielded to this is the drug companies, the medical art, which wants to maintain their reductionistic science in order to sell their different medications. I'm here to talk to you about AIDS and some of the research we've done. And one of the things, the new exciting research about AIDS that came out over the last year, an exciting new development where they found that if they use combinations of drugs, different combinations of drugs, they got superior results. In other words, it was not just a one-body problem. When they started using other drugs, they got a multi-body problem, and they got superior results. So this was exciting, but yet challenging to the mathematics. How do you now get a drug credentialed when multiple items might be usable? Because in the past, all of our legislature and all of our laws on getting a drug credentialed have all been around reductionism. And in a system that is not able to be used to calculate whether a medicine is safe or not. Medicines have been used for years and years, and every year they take 50, 60 medicines off the market because they're killing people. The only way you can get damages for these drugs is to prove that the chemical company previously knew the harm that it could cause before the item was sold. In other words, you have to prove that the drug company knowingly sold you a compound. They knew it was going to hurt, and they still sold it to you. If we could change the law and make them pay if there was any damages, then maybe we'd have a different type of mathematics and a different type of challenge that might be used for this. In our research on antibiotics, I started to see that the antibiotics affected bowel flora. Now, this is the microorganisms in our bowel, in our large intestine. This is such a complex thing. There's over 50 different bacteria, different funguses, different microorganisms existing in our bowel. It's so vastly complex. It's so complex that it cannot be reduced by modern science. And because it's not reducible, it's not studied. But it's bacteria, and now we're taking antibiotics which kill bacteria, upsetting a highly important process in our gut. A process that's important for our vitamins and important for many different factors in our body. A very, very complex situation. Basically, the paper that I've written is how I've shown that the more antibiotics we give the AIDS patients, the quicker they die. The categories of people who get AIDS are the homosexuals and the small children, and these are the two categories that get the most amount of antibiotics. Antibiotics now has fallen and has crashed as an institution. We now know this. Last year, Newsweek had an article, "The End of Antibiotics." The antibiotic generation has failed. The reductionistic science has failed. We need to look at other different factors. We need to look at cofactors. We talk about AIDS, we talk about cofactors. We talk about two things that when each independently doesn't hurt, but when they're together, they might hurt. And this is what we found about the AIDS virus and antibiotics. Separately, they're not so much danger, but when used together, they're deadly. This is what happens to our AIDS patients. This is some of the research we found. Another cofactor is the destruction of the lymphoid tissue, destruction of the adenoids, the tonsils, and the appendix. These are meaningful tissues for the body. These are meaningful defense of viruses, defense of allergies. This is important for us. This is important in our bodies. And when we sacrifice this tissue due to butchery or surgery, whatever you want to call it, what we're doing is weakening the human body, and weakening the body's ability to defend against all viruses, and especially the AIDS virus. This is some of the research we've done. Now, what can we do? What's the solution? I've given you some doom and gloom about antibiotics. A vast, large complex of money that's being out there, developed. The Bible tells us the healing of the nation will come from the leaves of the field. The healing of the nations will come from the leaves of the field. And this is something that I've always believed. And I started to find out that the complexity of nature matches the complexity of the human body because we're both natural entities. Natural. This is not just a natural fad going around. This is now people starting to realize that natural is a mechanism of healing. The healing of the nations will come from the leaves of the field. Another study that I'd like to share with you is, I've been now in Budapest for a bit, and a friend of mine's often wanted me to study syphilis. He works with rabbits. Inside the syphilis situation, we know that previous to till now, there's been no way to get immunological defense to syphilis. Once you get syphilis, you do not develop immunity to the second exposure. This is a bacterial invasion which is epidemic in the world today. The World Health Organization estimates that there will be 50 million new cases of syphilis next year. 50 million new cases. It's a horrendous disease. This friend asked me for years to do some studies with his rabbits. We worked a homeopathic development. I worked up a drug, homeopathically developed, natural entities. We used it on a bunch of rabbits, and what we found was astounding. Some of the rabbits were injected with a very, very heavy dose of syphilis bacteria, extremely heavy. 1 week later, were given the natural formula, and they had no change versus controls. But in 5 other rabbits that were given the natural formula, and then 1 week later were injected with the syphilis bacteria, these rabbits had developed immunity. And for the first time in medical history, we have an immunological factor to syphilis. Homeopathy, natural medicine has the answer to some of our questions, has the answer. This is a threat to big money, because now big money has put lots of money into the development of drugs and lots of money into the reductionistic philosophy. This money now is being challenged by the ideas of nonlinear mathematics, fractal theory, and all these other different new developments in medicine.
And now a new consciousness and awareness of natural medicine develops. People everywhere realize how the drug companies buy, twist, and lie to make money. The drug companies put profits above people, and they use it to sell stock. Their time is finished, and all of their money, and all of their power, and all of the king's horses, and all the king's men won't put them back together again. Thank you. So our little story has started from the ideas of the Egyptian and the Chinese. We've seen the microscope of Leeuwenhoek, and we understand that Jenner was a homeopath trying to do like treating like, working at a similar time, but not really communicating with Samuel Hahnemann, developing ideas of like treating like, and the idea of variolinum, which is using scabs and different things to develop immunity, which Herring then used an awful lot, and many other homeopaths. And then how actually washing the hands much later was developed. And then how the idea of the germ theory now has been needed to be modified. The flies do not cause the garbage. The flies take away the garbage. It is wrong for us to search for something that is taking away the garbage. We need to look at what is the garbage, what is the detox, what's the true reason for the pathogen. And as our friend Louis Pasteur stated, the microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. Well, the microbe is not just nothing, and the terrain is not just everything. It's a joint procedure of both of these things blending together. And now we can understand a little bit more about parasitology, immunity, and infections.